When I ended things with him, I thought I was making the right choice. 5 years together, and I convinced myself he wasn't enough for me anymore. He was kind, reliable, but not what I thought I wanted. I wanted an alpha. Someone bold. Someone who could climb to the top. I traded loyalty for excitement, but nothing prepared me for the day. I walked into the office and saw him. Not my new boyfriend sitting in the corner office. My ex, my boss. The man I threw away, 5 years. That's how long we were together. 5 years of routines, of birthdays spent side by side, of dinners on the couch, of arguments followed by quiet reconciliations. To anyone looking in from the outside, we were steady, safe, reliable. But somewhere deep inside me, I began to feel restless. I told myself it wasn't his fault. He was good to me, kind, thoughtful, reliable. But maybe that was the problem. He was too reliable. I didn't feel that burning spark anymore. No butterflies, no thrill. My friends would tease me about how safe my relationship was, and I started wondering if they were right. Maybe I had settled too young. Maybe I was missing out on something better. That's when the words started circling in my head. Alpha. I'd see posts online, girls bragging about their alpha boyfriends who took charge, who commanded attention, who climbed the ladder fast. I'd hear coworkers gossiping about men who carried themselves with power, and then I'd look at my boyfriend, sweet, dependable, but quiet, reserved, not the type to dominate a room. And little by little, dissatisfaction turned into resentment. I started convincing myself that love wasn't enough, that I deserved someone more, someone bold, someone who would make me feel like I was with a man who could conquer the world. The worst part? I didn't tell him. I kept smiling, kept holding his hand, all while nursing the thought, I don't know if he's man enough for me anymore. It was a girls' night when the seed finally took root. We were drinking wine, laughing too loud, scrolling through social media, posts of influencers, bragging about their perfect relationships. One of my friends, bold, unfiltered as always, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Girl, you need an alpha. You've been playing house with the nice guy for too long." The table roared with laughter, but the words pierced me. Because I had been thinking the same thing, hadn't I? That maybe my boyfriend wasn't enough, that maybe I had outgrown him. From then on, everything he did started to look small. When he offered to cook dinner, I thought, cute, but weak. When he let me choose the movie, I thought, why doesn't he take charge? Even his calm, patient way of handling arguments began to annoy me. Instead of seeing maturity, I saw passivity. And then, as if on cue, another man entered the picture. A coworker. Loud, confident, always cracking jokes, always the center of attention. He wasn't better looking than my boyfriend, not really. But he carried himself like he owned the place. He oozed the kind of energy my friends would call alpha. I told myself it was harmless to notice. But late at night, lying next to the man who had loved me for years, I caught myself imagining what it would feel like to be with someone like that. Someone who could walk into a room and make everyone else shrink a little. The idea turned into a craving. The craving turned into a decision. And once I made it, there was no going back. I'll never forget the look in his eyes when I said the words. We were sitting in the living room. He had just asked how my day went, the same way he always did, with that quiet smile that used to make me feel safe. But that night, the words came tumbling out before I could stop them. I'm not attracted to you anymore. I need someone stronger. I need an alpha. The silence that followed was suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest, waiting for him to explode, to fight for me, to prove me wrong. I wanted him to suddenly become that man I claimed I needed, but he didn't. He just sat there, looking at me with this calm, unreadable expression. And then he said the last thing I expected. I understand. No anger, no begging, no accusation. Just those 2 words. For a moment, I felt a surge of irritation. That's it? That's all you're going to say after 5 years? I wanted him to argue, to demand an explanation, to show me that fire I swore was missing. Instead, he gave me grace. I told myself his calmness proved my point, that he wasn't strong enough, wasn't alpha enough. But a tiny part of me, buried under the bravado, felt something else, something I couldn't name at the time. Loss. Leaving him wasn't dramatic. No screaming fights, no slamming doors. Just a quiet packing of my things, a polite exchange of words, and then emptiness. He didn't chase me. He didn't beg me to stay. He just let me go. I should have felt free. I should have felt excited. But walking out of that apartment, I had this strange ache in my chest, like I was leaving behind something heavier than I realized. I shoved it down. I told myself it was normal to feel guilty after breaking up. The truth was, he had been my world for 5 years, my safe place, my constant. And I was trading it all for a fantasy. But I was stubborn. I convinced myself I was making the right choice, that I was chasing passion, strength, dominance, the things I thought I needed. I refused to see it as a mistake. So I walked away, rehearsing in my head the story I would tell my friends. I finally found the courage to go after what I deserve. And yet, when I closed the door behind me, it didn't feel like courage. It felt like betrayal. The first weeks with my new alpha boyfriend were intoxicating. He was bold, cocky, the kind of man who ordered for both of us at restaurants without asking. He had this way of speaking like he was always right, and for a while I mistook it for confidence. My friends cheered me on. "Finally, you're with a real man," they'd say, and I'd smile proudly, as if I had won some invisible competition. With him, everything felt loud, fast, electric. It was the opposite of the quiet, steady love I had left behind. I told myself this was what attraction felt like, that butterflies and chaos were better than calm and stability. I convinced myself I had upgraded. But every now and then, in the quiet moments, I'd catch myself missing the gentleness of my ex. The way he listened, the way he cared, the way he made space for me instead of swallowing all the air in the room. I ignored those thoughts, buried them under the thrill of something new. After all, wasn't this what I wanted? Wasn't this the alpha I had been searching for? At least that's what I thought. For a while, everything felt like a high. He had this energy that pulled people in. Loud laughs, confident strides, the way he slapped people on the back like they were old friends. At work, everyone noticed him. He wasn't just present, he dominated a room. Compared to my ex, he seemed fearless. If something went wrong at work, he barked orders, took charge, and acted like the hero. I told myself this was strength, this was leadership. This was what I had been missing. When he wrapped his arm around me, I felt powerful by association, like I was finally with someone who was going places. He talked big about promotions, about being on top, about how people like my ex would always stay background characters, while men like him rose to the top. I laughed along, pretending not to feel that sting at the mention of my ex, pretending I didn't secretly wonder if he knew just how wrong he was. But at that stage, I silenced the doubts. I wanted so badly to believe I had made the right choice, so I clung to his charm, to his swagger, to the idea that I had finally chosen the alpha. Soon, I started pressuring him about the promotion. It wasn't just me, he bragged constantly about how he deserved it, how it was only a matter of time before he was in the corner office. I believed him, or at least I wanted to. "You have to go for it," I told him one night, excitement buzzing in my voice. "Show them you're the best. Don't hold back." He smirked, kissed me, and said, "Babe, I've got this." They're practically begging me to take it. But beneath the bravado, I noticed cracks. He missed deadlines, argued with supervisors, made big promises he couldn't back up. Instead of staying late to perfect reports, he stayed late to brag at the bar. Still, I ignored it. I told myself this was confidence, not carelessness, that a true alpha didn't need to grind like everyone else. He had charisma, and charisma would win. Meanwhile, I kept picturing the corner office. I imagined walking in as the girlfriend of the man who earned it, showing everyone I had chosen correctly. That vision kept me going, even when the doubts whispered louder each day. The comparisons started quietly, like a shadow I didn't want to acknowledge. When my new boyfriend laughed at someone's mistake at work, I thought of how my ex would have quietly helped them instead. When my new boyfriend boasted about all the things he would achieve, I remembered how my ex had actually done things without needing an audience, even in small moments and cooking, listening, caring. I felt the absence of what I once had. My ex had been steady, thoughtful, someone I could count on. My new boyfriend was fire, bright, burning, but dangerous if you got too close. But pride is a dangerous thing. I refused to admit out loud that I might have chosen wrong. I had told my friends, my coworkers, even myself that I was upgrading, that I needed an alpha. So every time the comparisons surfaced, I buried them. I told myself my ex was too soft, and this new man was proof I had matured, that I was chasing ambition instead of comfort. But in the back of my mind, a voice whispered, "What if you mistook kindness for weakness? What if the real strength was the one you walked away from?" The cracks widened faster than I expected. The confidence I admired started looking like arrogance. He snapped at waiters, mocked coworkers, and rolled his eyes whenever I disagreed with him. His jokes sometimes stung, cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. He wasn't listening the way my ex used to. Conversations with him weren't about sharing. They were about waiting until it was his turn to talk again. And when things went wrong at work, instead of owning it, he blamed everyone else. The more I saw, the harder it became to ignore the truth. This wasn't strength. This wasn't leadership. This wasn't the alpha I thought I wanted. But I couldn't say anything. I had left a good man for this. If I admitted the cracks, I had to admit the mistake. So I clung tighter, insisting to myself that once he got the promotion, it would all be worth it. That the corner office would prove I had chosen right. And then came the day of the announcement. I woke up buzzing with anticipation. This was supposed to be his moment. Our moment. I dressed carefully, ready to stand beside him as the girlfriend of the new corner office man. He was cocky that morning, smirking, saying, "Don't worry, babe. By the end of today, you'll be with the top dog." I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to. The office gathered, whispers of excitement filling the air. My heart raced as the manager began to speak. congratulating the person who had earned the promotion. I leaned toward my boyfriend, ready to squeeze his hand, and then I heard the name. Not his, my ex's. My breath caught in my throat. My body went cold. And when I turned my head toward the corner office, I saw him, my ex, calm, composed, standing tall as people applauded, and for the first time I realized maybe the real alpha had been right beside me all along. When they called his name, it felt like the floor gave way beneath me. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't even look at my boyfriend. My eyes locked on one person only, him, my ex. He walked forward calmly, shoulders straight, with none of the arrogance or showmanship I had been chasing. He didn't brag. He didn't strut. He simply accepted the congratulations with quiet authority. People clapped, genuinely clapped because they respected him, and then it hit me like a knife to the chest. The very thing I had left him for. Strength, confidence, presence, he had possessed all along. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't arrogant. It was real. I felt my stomach twist. My ex, the man I abandoned, the one I told wasn't alpha enough, was now the one in the corner office. The one with the power. The one I had traded away. My face went pale. My hands trembled. I forced a smile, but inside I was screaming. The days after the announcement were torture. I tried to act normal around my boyfriend, but every time I walked past that office, my heart dropped. I caught glimpses of my ex behind the glass walls, calmly directing meetings, his voice steady and firm. People leaned in when he spoke. They respected him. And when he saw me, he didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He didn't even acknowledge me beyond the professional courtesy he extended to everyone. That hurt more than anger ever could have. Because in his silence, in his distance, I realized something devastating. He had moved on. He wasn't bitter, he wasn't broken, and he sure as hell wasn't chasing me. He had simply risen. Without me. Meanwhile, my so-called alpha boyfriend sulked, furious at being overlooked. He ranted about favoritism, about unfairness, about how the company would regret not picking the real leader. I sat there nodding, but inside, a single thought echoed in my mind. They did pick the real leader. He's just not you. Working under my ex was a nightmare I never saw coming. He never treated me unfairly, never made it personal. He was professional to the core, but that professionalism cut deeper than cruelty ever could. I was just another employee to him now, nothing more. Once upon a time, I was his world. The woman he cooked for, planned with, dreamed with. Now I was barely a shadow in his day. And the more I watched him in that role, the more I realized how blind I had been. His calmness, the thing I mistook for weakness, was the very thing that made him strong. Where my new boyfriend barked and blustered, my ex listened, analyzed, and delivered. The respect he commanded wasn't forced. It was earned. And sitting at my desk, listening to coworkers praise him, I felt a gnawing ache in my chest. Not just jealousy, but regret. Regret so sharp it kept me up at night. My new boyfriend couldn't handle the loss. Instead of working harder, he unraveled. He snapped at colleagues, skipped deadlines, and drowned his frustrations in alcohol. The confidence I once admired now looked pathetic, desperate. The shine wore off fast. The truth was impossible to ignore. He wasn't an alpha. He was a boy playing pretend, puffing his chest out while real men quietly built empires. And my ex? He was building one right in front of me. Steady, composed, admired by everyone. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to belittle anyone. His strength was undeniable because it didn't demand attention and it commanded respect. Watching the contrast side by side was unbearable. I had traded gold for glitter, and now the glitter was fading. At night, I started replaying everything in my head. The way my ex used to stay up late helping me with work. The way he quietly supported my dreams without ever needing recognition. The way he said, "I understand," instead of exploding when I broke his heart. I thought that calmness was weakness, but now I see it was strength. The kind of strength my new boyfriend will never have, and I hate myself for realizing it too late. The regret crept in like a whisper at first. Just a small ache when I saw him in the corner office, or when I remembered how safe I used to feel in his arms. But that whisper grew louder every day until it consumed me. Because the truth is, I didn't just lose a boyfriend. I lost the man who would have stood beside me through anything. The man who had already proven, quietly and without fanfare, that he was the real alpha all along. And I was the fool who walked away. It started with little flashbacks. A song would come on the radio, and suddenly I'd remember singing it with him in the car, windows down, laughter spilling out like it was the easiest thing in the world. I'd be cooking dinner with my new boyfriend and remember how my ex used to chop vegetables beside me, humming quietly like he was happiest just being near me. The memories hurt. They weren't loud or dramatic. They were gentle, steady, full of love I didn't see at the time. And the worst part was I couldn't stop them. He was everywhere. In the way my coworkers praised his leadership. In the way people leaned on him for advice. In the way he walked past me in the hall without even a flicker of recognition in his eyes. I thought I had wanted an alpha, but looking back, he had been one all along. Not the kind who roared to prove himself, but the kind who stood strong no matter what. The kind I should have cherished And now those memories cut deeper than any insult ever could, because they weren't just memories. They were reminders of everything I threw away. The envy came next, sharp and unrelenting. I'd hear coworkers talk about how inspiring he was, how calm he stayed under pressure, how much they respected him. And every time it felt like another dagger in my chest, because I used to be the one who had him. I used to be the one who saw that strength up close, who was loved by that kind of man. Now I was just another face in the crowd, listening to people admire him while I sat silently with regret burning inside me. Meanwhile, my new boyfriend's mask was crumbling. He was jealous, bitter, always complaining about how the wrong guy got promoted. His insecurities bled into everything, and I began to see him for what he truly was. Not an alpha, not a leader, just a boy who wanted the title without doing the work. The contrast was unbearable. My ex didn't even need to try. He simply was. And my new boyfriend couldn't measure up no matter how loud he shouted. And deep down, I realized something that terrified me. I wasn't proud to stand beside my new man. I was ashamed. Our relationship unraveled fast after that. I started pulling away emotionally at first, then physically. The late-night talks, the laughter, the closeness, they all evaporated. I couldn't look at him without seeing the cracks, without hearing that whisper of regret reminding me I had chosen wrong. He noticed, of course. He accused me of still having feelings for my ex. He wasn't wrong, but I denied it anyway. How could I admit that the man I had thrown away was the one I still longed for? That every night I lay awake, imagining what my life would look like if I had stayed. The fights grew louder, uglier. And every time he shouted, every time he belittled me, every time he tried to assert his dominance, I thought about my ex's calm voice saying, "I understand." That single phrase carried more strength than all of my new boyfriend's shouting combined, and I hated myself for realizing it too late. I never said it out loud, but in my heart, I confessed it every single day. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I confessed it when I walked past the corner office and saw him leading with quiet confidence. I confessed it when my new boyfriend stumbled, shouted, and shrank beside him. I confessed it when I remembered the 5 years I had with him. 5 years I will never get back. Sometimes I imagined telling him, stopping him in the hall, apologizing, begging for another chance. But then I'd see the look in his eyes. Not cruel, not bitter, just indifferent. Like I no longer existed in his world. And that was worse than anger. That was worse than hate. Because it meant he had healed. He had moved on. He had found strength in himself, without me. So I kept my confession silent, a secret I carried alone, locked inside my chest, where it ate away at me piece by piece. Now when I look back, I don't see strength in my decision. I don't see courage, I see cowardice. I see a woman who traded loyalty for lust, kindness for arrogance, true strength for a cheap imitation. I see myself walking away from the only man who ever truly loved me. And for what? For a boy who crumbled the second life demanded more from him. The irony is unbearable. I left because I wanted an alpha, and in doing so I lost the real one. The man who didn't need to shout, didn't need to brag, didn't need to prove himself. The man who built his life with patience, integrity, and quiet strength. And the cruelest truth of all, he will never be mine again. Now when I see him in that corner office, calm and respected, I don't feel pride. I don't feel joy. I feel the crushing weight of regret. Because I threw away the love of my life for an illusion, and that is a mistake I will regret until the day I die.
And that was her regretful confession. She wanted an alpha, but she walked away from the real one. Sometimes, the biggest lies are the ones we tell ourselves, and the deepest regrets are the ones we can never undo. This is Lies and Regrets, where every story reminds us that choices have consequences. And if this story hit you hard, don't worry, another one's coming that will shake you even more. So make sure you tap that subscribe button and join us for the next chapter of Lies and Regrets. Until next time, take care of your truth.